Howdy folks, I'm Joe and this is my garage. That's the sign, Joe's Garage. I guess you might call this a pilot episode of sorts. I'm just a car guy and all around, technical. I enjoy the technical aspect of things. I enjoy bringing old things back to life, and thought I'd make some videos and see how it goes. If people express interest, then maybe I'll make some more. Today I am working on my 1964 Chrysler New Yorker station wagon. It is a project I picked up a few months back, and I got it running and I got it driving. The brakes are good enough for now. The fuel system was a mess. I pulled an old Holley carburetor off that was they had it rigged up where it would blow flames out the back of the car, so the carburetor is roached, and I pulled that and I put another 600 on that I had lying around, and it run okay, but I'm not real happy with it. So I picked up another carburetor that is first I picked up a Summit Racing carburetor, and that won't even fit with the dual feed line. So now I've got a Edelbrock 750 that I bought off of eBay, and turns out that it's mechanical secondary, and I didn't realize that. So it's not really the proper carburetor for this old pig, but I'm going to go through it, rebuild it, and to hell with it. We'll see how it runs, and if it's blowing black smoke and bogging and whatnot, then I'll either trade up for something else, or I don't know, work on some gearing and a torque converter for the ride. I don't know. Let's see though. I'm gonna see if I can spin this around, and I will show you guys what we're working on. So I have to back up a little bit. I don't really have the biggest garage, but there she is in all her glory. It's 1964 New Yorker Town and Country. I actually traded a 1997 Jeep Cherokee for this car, and the Cherokee was in pretty nice shape. It was a nice rig, but I've had a couple of them and I was just bored with it, so I decided to move on. And this car caught my eye. It's got a lot of neat little touches that really drew my attention, like the roof rack. It's about the most heavy-duty roof rack I've ever seen on an old car. Although I haven't had a lot of old cars like this, so maybe I'm just biased because I don't know what I'm looking at. The car is a hardtop, which I really thought was cool, that it was a station wagon 4-door hardtop. This was the last year, 1964 was the last year that they made a hardtop wagon in a New Yorker. The seats, the interior is decent. It's good enough, for running around and playing with. It could be restored, obviously, but like the front seats, some mice got a hold of the foam and ate it up, and so I just put some new foam in there and taped over it and put these beaded seat covers on it because what the hell. So I wanted to be able to drive it, and couldn't really do that when I was sitting 4 inches deep in the seat. Come in, I'll show you the interior because it's pretty neat. It's got a lot of chrome and doodads and widgets here and there, and I think the doors are really cool. This is the door handle itself, and you push it forward to lock the doors, and then you pull it back to open. One option that it did not get is power windows. It's got almost every option besides power windows, which I'm okay with because I don't like them. I know they give you all kinds of trouble when they get old. So I'm all right with the manual windows. Don't ask me what the two mirrors is all about. They both seem to be factory Chrysler mirrors. I think there was also extra mirrors on the doors, and I think that it was a his and hers setup. I think that the wife must have been a short lady, because that's the only thing I can think of why they would have so many mirrors on this car. We'll turn around. One thing that's pretty cool about it, you can see it's got rear air. That was an option for this year. And then when you go around the back side of it, there's a console with a stereo and speakers on the back side for the kids. So that's a pretty neat feature in my opinion, you know. So anyway, I don't really know what else to say about it, except it does have, you know, factory cruise control, which is pretty cool. And I've got all the mice evacuated out of here. I'm pretty sure it doesn't really smell like a pile of mouse turds anymore, so that's a good thing. And we'll pop the hood. So the factory engine on this car would have been a 413 Chrysler, of course. That's gone, but what they did install is a 383 that, the way I understand it, it's a like a dealer bought engine. So you went to the Chrysler and you buy this engine over the counter. So it's a crate motor from the late 70s or maybe even early 70s. It's a 4-barrel. I checked the numbers, and that, you know, that was the story I was given, and the numbers seem to reflect that. So I think it's, if I remember right, it's like 330 or 340 horsepower or something like that. But this is what we're working with. I had to rebuild the brake booster. Let's see if I can show you this. It's pretty neat. It's got, well, sorry, this is my first time doing this, and I'm not very good with the camera just yet. The booster has bolts that bolt the halves together. So I was able to buy a rebuild kit, take it apart, replace all the rubber in it, and just bolt it back together. So there was only one piece I had to send out to have changed, because you can't do it at home. So anyway, it was pretty neat. And I went ahead, while I had it apart, I got a dual line master, because frankly, I don't trust a single line master cylinder. And this car, everything on this car is you know, made out of unobtainium. So I don't want to crash into something. I shouldn't say that. There's some parts available, but there are you know, you can find the chrome, some of the chrome and things that for the full-size Chryslers that'll you know, work on it. But the windows in the back and a lot of the trim is wagon specific, and I don't want to crash it. So that would kind of ruin my day. So anyway, I'm going to pull this carburetor off and get to it. I'll show you what I'm working with here. The Holley, I had the Holley on there. It was, you know, of course, a pretty simple swap. There, you know, a few little changes to put the Edelbrock on, but not much. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but I'm going to try to show you. When you hit this accelerator pump, fuel is just, you can see that? It's just dribbling out. I don't even know if it's doing anything, but it's full of gunk. You know, I got it running on it. You could smell it in the exhaust. It would barely run, and then it was doing a little better, and I thought, well, maybe I could take it for a drive and just blow it out. But it's no bueno. It just bogs real bad and is barely even drivable. So next step is going to be to pull it off and clear this mess, so that I've got a workbench to work at, because you can see I've got other carburetors that I was, you know, playing with. And see what we can do. So without further ado, I think the next step will be to get it off and get it on the bench. So I've got the carburetor off. I'm going to use this old intake I have laying around as a workbench. Just a nice way to set the carburetor down and not have the linkages dragging on the top of the bench. I will say, I noticed in my last video, I was just listening to myself as I was pulling this carburetor. I will try to cut down on the ums and the ahs. That's going to be real annoying. I know that's a pet peeve for a lot of watchers, so I will work on that. And there I go. This carburetor only has a few things that you have to unhook to remove. I mean, there's 4 mounting bolts, there's vacuum ports across the front. This port here is, well, this is ported vacuum, so this is vacuum that is generated after the throttle plates are opened up. This is vacuum that's from underneath the throttle plates. That's where my distributor vacuum advance was hooked up, because this is a non-emissions engine. So I had the non-ported vacuum hooked up to my distributor. And then this is the PCV on the front. Over here on the side, there's a choke cable, there's your fuel line, and that's about it. That's the only things that I had to unhook to pull this carburetor. It took me about 5 minutes. And for some reason, Edelbrock, in their wisdom, I'll say, used a Torx bit for all their screws. So that's what we're gonna have to use to get the top off the carburetor, is the Torx bit. I didn't bore you with the 5 minutes of pulling the carburetor off. I think there's a lot of videos that show stuff like that, and I don't know, some of you might like it, some of you might not. I guess if you do, let me know, and then I can work on my delivery. So to get this top off of this carburetor, I'm going to unhook the accelerator pump, and then what else? I thought there was another. Oh yeah, so I have to pull this little pin. There's a little I forgot, I'm not sure what you call that thing. It's a little snap-on, weird shaped. It's not a circlip. I don't know. If anybody knows what that little clip's called, you can you know, let me know. There it is. That's what I just took off of that. What looks to be the choke. So it's part of it's the choke linkage, and on the side here, it's where it increases the RPMs for the idle speed when you have the choke on. So start taking these Torx screws out. I noticed when I pulled the carburetor, I don't know if you can see down in there, I don't know, it's not really showing up. There is orange RTV squeezed out between the top plate and where the secondary butterflies are. And I think you and I both know that Edelbrock did not use orange RTV when they built these carburetors. So somebody's already been in here, and as they've probably already posed things up, because I like things to be, you know, to be right, and orange RTV to hold your carburetor together is not right. That also tells me that I'm going to have to pay real close attention to the way everything's put together, and to any changes that could have been made in this carburetor, because someone who likes to use orange RTV in their carburetor probably doesn't pay the best attention when they're disassembling or reassembling their carburetor. And maybe you know, I'm being kind of judgmental, but I've done a whole lot of these, and I can tell you right now, I've never found a carburetor with RTV in it that had anything else done right. So that's the kind of things that you guys, especially you guys that are, you know, new to carburetors, you know, nowadays, not everybody knows how to take one of these things apart, and not everybody knows how to adjust them or clean them, or they don't know what they do, they don't know anything about them. So I'm gonna pull all these screws and make sure they're all the same length, which it looks like they are, because that's another thing to pay attention to. You get screws that are different lengths, and then before you know it, they're not going together properly when you put it back together. Let's see, did I miss any? I don't think so. This plate should come right off. Well, what we're gonna do, we're gonna put the phone down. How about right here on my desk press? Yeah, that's a good spot for it. There it goes. Oh yeah. All right. Well, there's some orange RTV, and there's some orange RTV, and there's a lot of gunk inside this carburetor. My accelerator pump doesn't look too bad, except you can see along the edge of the rubber, it's kind of chewy, and that's no good. You know, I'm going to try not to say that. I listen to or watch a lot of other guys do this on YouTube. I enjoy their videos. You know, hats off to Mortsky and Puddin's Fab Shop. I like those guys. Derek at Vice Grip Garage is probably the first one I started watching, and I watch every video he makes. I love that guy. So I tend to pick up some of their mannerisms, some of their little colloquialisms, and I'm going to try not to copy anything, and if I do, I apologize. That is not my intention. So I'll show you some of the crustiness here. You can see, well, where'd it go? I was just looking at a big hunk of poopy that was inside this thing. Anyway, there is a lot of dirt in the bottom of this carburetor. There's the orange RTV, you can see squeezed out, just gunking things up. And there's a bunch of dirt in there. These jets are probably full of dirt. I mean, it's not the worst I've ever seen, of course. I mean, sometimes you pull these apart after years and years, and they are full of it. But it's workable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start disassembly, and I don't know, maybe I'll set up the camera here, and if I can figure out how to do that thing where you speed up the time, it would be a video that you could watch in you know, double speed or triple speed or whatever. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove every single one of these screws and all the parts. I'm going to lay them out on the bench. I'm going to keep track of everything exactly where it was, and then I'll reassemble. I'll clean it all, blow air through every little passageway, and I mean every single hole that you see gets some cleaner down it, and then it gets air blown through it. And if you don't get air through it, figure out why. Figure out if it's supposed to have air going through it. Some of them are just you know, might just be a casting hole or something. But all it takes is one tiny passageway with one you know, half a millimeter size piece of grit to just screw your day, and you'll get it all back together, and then it's still not working right, and you just want to, you know, throw things. And we don't want to do that. We want to get it back together and working properly the first time, because anything worth doing right, well, sorry, let me back up. Anything worth doing is worth doing right the first time. I've always went by that, and it's served me well. You know, at least attempt to do it right the first time, you know, because I've done enough screwing around and doing things the way that you know, you shouldn't do when I was a kid, and it just causes nothing but headaches in the end. You really are doing yourself a favor by taking the time, spending the extra couple of bucks, and making things right. So anyway, let's see if I can do what I just did with this. If I can get that handle out of this. Sorry, this is, yeah, really exciting content right here. Watching a guy balance his phone on the old drill press. Okay. Now, I don't know enough to know what every single one of these parts is called. I'm not a carburetor genius. I know there's the Venturi here, and I know we got the squirter for the accelerator pump. You know, I know what the primaries and the secondaries are. But if you don't know, the primaries are what you run on at low speed, low throttle, you know, putting around, right off idle. The secondaries are what open up when you romp on it. You know, give it the heavy right foot, and the secondaries open and deliver fuel to all 4 barrels. So you've got primaries that run to the barrels. Oh boy, look at that. Yeah, that's really doing something, huh? Oh my gosh. You got chunks of oh Jesus, don't use RTV in your carburetor. It is not gasoline compliant. It's not gasoline compatible. It is it turns gasoline is a solvent with most RTVs. This won't work. It won't work. Don't do it. God. It's all down in there. Man, it's no wonder this thing wasn't working right. Anyway, that one's not as bad. They just had it all goobered up on the other one. So you could have secondaries that are not functioning properly, and it'll run fine until you romp on it, and then you know, things don't work. Or you could have secondaries that work too good, like I had on the first carburetor that I put on here. I took it out, you know, like an idiot. I couldn't help myself. Oh, there's more RTV clogging things up. And I got out on a busy road out here, and I wanted to see how she would run. I wanted to hear her sing, you know. So I step on it, and the 4 barrel, everything opens up, the secondaries open up, and boy, she's cooking, you know. And then I let off the gas, and she just wanted to keep going. there was no stopping her. So I jam on the brakes. I'm stomping on the gas pedal, trying to get it to let loose. I thought the pedal was stuck at first, and she was not cooperating. And I'm getting it slowed down a little bit, and I'm creeping up on traffic that stopped, and I'm sweating, man. And I got both feet on the brake pedal, and I'm pushing about as hard as I can. I'm really hoping that these old wheel cylinders all hold out, because I didn't change the wheel cylinders. And the light, thank God the light turns, because I'm creeping up on the car in front of me, and I was able to pull in a parking lot, shut it down, and I found that the secondaries were stuck open. I don't know what it is. I think the diaphragm in there that works the secondaries had, I don't know if it was just old and crusty or what, but it was stuck, and it was keeping the secondaries wide open on me. So after that, I think it was good. I mean, I took, I got it loose and didn't really run hard again after that. I waited until I was out in the middle of nowhere to do that again, and I tried again, and this time it was fine. So I think I just had some gunk in it, or the thing was getting dried up and acting weird. I don't know, but anyway, that carburetor, I wasn't very happy, like I said, with how it was running. I mean, it was running okay, but when you would step on it, it almost sounded like it was too small. It was a 600, and this is a big block and it's a big car, and well, maybe it's just, you know, too small of a carburetor for this big old thing. So I got this 750. Well, like I said, I got a 600 Summit, and it didn't even fit at all. There's the coil and the distributor sit right where the dual feed line would go. I'm sure it's easy enough to change. I just didn't want to do all that, you know. So I thought, why don't I just get a carburetor that fits and works with the factory configuration where all that stuff is. So that's what I did. These Edelbrocks I really like because they're simple. You take the top off, you take some parts out, and it's broke down. There's no bowls hanging off the sides. There's no bottom plate to take loose. It's pretty easy, and plus when they run right, they really run right. I had a 60, what was it, a 65? Yeah, I had a 65 F250, and look at the gunk in the bottom of the accelerator pump. That's probably why it wasn't getting anything through it. And that 65 F250, it had the 352 in it, and it was a good solid engine, but the old 2-barrel was kind of, you know, not great. So I put an Edelbrock Performer intake on it, and I put a Edelbrock 600 CFM carburetor on it, and man, did that thing run good after that. And I didn't have to do hardly anything to it. I just bolted it on. I think I made a few adjustments. I don't even know if I adjusted on it, to tell you the truth. It was just the easiest thing, you know, and everybody would tell me, gosh, if you can make a carburetor run that good, if you can make it run that smooth, man, you know what you're doing. And I'm like, well, I just put it on, you know, I didn't really do anything. But I mean, I didn't really tell everybody that. I said, oh yeah, I know my carburetors. But honestly, I didn't really have to do much of anything with it. And ever since then, I've been a pretty big fan. See, so what you want to do is not drop parts into the drainage bin, and you want to pay attention to where things were, because otherwise you just you're gonna make mistakes when you put it back together. So if anything, this can be instructional for you folks to learn what not to do by proxy. So yeah, it's not the worst I've ever seen. I've seen a lot worse, but you can see well, maybe you can't because the light's not very good, but there's a lot of gel in there. It's pretty gross. So, and I just dropped my piece again. Why did I put it back on there? That's the real question is, why did I reinstall it knowing that it's going to fall back on? Oh wait, never mind, that's another one. Okay, well, I'll figure that out. I see where it goes. It's not rocket science, you know. You don't have to be the smartest guy in the world to work on a carburetor. You got to pay attention and know where things go. Oh boy, that's bad in there. There's some of these passageways that are just full of gunk. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna give you a shot again. Gunk. There's gunk down in all these. There's RTB in there. There's gel. There's just snot all in it. So I'm going to fire up the air compressor. I'm going to turn this video off for a minute because there's no point with the air compressor running. It's bad enough with the furnace running. And I'm going to get this all cleaned out and I'll show you an after shot. The only other thing I will say that I'm going to take out of here, you can see this piece here, that little, I forget what that's called, the pump shot or something or other. I think there's a spring and a ball underneath there, so I'm going to take that out. And then these jets. All you need is a screwdriver and these jets come out. So I'm going to pull those out too. And there's one back there also. You got jets on the primaries and on the secondaries. So I'm going to pull all that out, give it a good wash. I'll show you the after results and then we'll reassemble. Okay, so here I got the jets out and I got that squirter doohickey ball slider jobby out of there, and you can see, I mean, this thing sat, and once this has got dry, you can see that there's literally it's not just dirt, it is corrosion inside this. It's not too bad, but sometimes carburetor cleaner by itself just isn't going to do it. You got to get in there with a brush, you got to get in there with a screwdriver and get all those barnacles cleaned up, especially over here. I'm hoping that the accelerator pump area isn't going to cause me a lot of trouble because of that. I'll get in there with some, well, actually, you know what? I'm looking at the wrong side. It's pretty smooth. I'll probably get in there with some like 1000 grit sandpaper and clean it. I don't even need to do that. It's smooth. But the rest of it, I'm just going to scrape all the big stuff. I'm going to finish getting all the dirt out of it. One thing I'll say is that you should always look at your jets and record the number. You know, and we're talking about when you're dealing with old carburetors that have been messed with in the past. You know, these carburetors are great to use as long as they're still in good shape, as long as these shafts aren't worn. You know, you start wearing some clearance in between the shaft and the body of the carburetor, and then you suck air in and it's never going to run right. You're never going to get it to idle properly. You're never going to get it tuned. At least it's not going to be smooth. And so you got to check all those and make sure they're all good, and then get all this dirt out. But anyway, the jet sizes. So this one's running a 407 on the primary and a 413 on the secondary. I don't know if that's factory. I don't know if that's what it came with or not. I'll probably look it up before I put it back together. I'm also going to look at the springs on the enrichment. These Edelbrocks have these enrichment needles, these guys here, and they've got a spring on top, and that's how those are adjusted. So I'm going to see if those have been fooled with as well. And I'm going to check the floats. You want to make sure that the floats aren't taking in fuel. You know, these will get a tiny pinhole and then fuel gets in them, and then your carburetor will sit there and run, and it's running fine, and then the idle starts to get choppy, and then it dies because it's flooding, because these are not floating. And because when these float, that's what shuts off your fuel that's coming in from the fuel pump. So I've got a carburetor kit with all the parts, and I'm going to get all this clean and put all the new parts in. I just want to go over those few things with you guys, and I will show you the end result in a moment. All right, I got it, you know, pretty clean. I mean, it's still ugly. I'm not going to lie to you. There's corrosion that, you know, no matter how much you scrape, it's not shiny and pretty and new in there. But all the big chunks are out. and all the places that need to be smooth and clean, they are. So I think all I need to do is reassemble. I wanted to mention one thing. Compressed air is your best friend when you're cleaning these things out. I mean, there's all these little passageways that you blow in these holes, and then you'll notice air coming out of other holes where that fuel flows. And you blow all that, you spray some cleaner in there, and then you blow all that junk out. Let me remind you that if you blow air in here and you've got cleaner in there, cleaner is going to shoot out here and hit you right where you don't want it to hit. There, it's going to shoot out there, and it's going to hit you right in the face. So this stuff in your eyes hurts. It's not cool, and it could cause permanent damage. So what I do is I'll use a rag or something like this. I'll put the end of the air hose in there, and I'll put a rag over it, or I will just stand back and make sure I know where that's going to shoot, because I've been there many times. I've had it in my mouth, I've had it in my eyes. It's nasty. It's not as bad as it used to be, but this stuff here, it used to be you'd squirt this in a carburetor and it would just liquefy every bit of gunk that was in there. It's not that strong anymore. Probably 15 years ago they changed it so that it's less lethal, keeping me from getting cancer and burning my eyeballs out, which I thought it was a free country and I could burn my eyeballs out if I wanted to. But anyway, the fact is it's safer now, but it still is bad for you. You don't want it in your eyes. It's nasty. Anyway, end of rant. So now I'm removing the floats, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean them up and I'm going to shake them. I'm going to listen and see if they have any liquid inside them. And if they do have liquid inside them, then they need to be changed. But I wanted to show this video or this portion, because getting these pins out sometimes on a nasty old carburetor can be a job. But you just want to be careful, because if that's seized in there, you could wind up breaking one of these tabs, and if you do that, you're not going to be happy. One of these punches, like for which you might use on a roll pin, are great. You just want to make sure it's smaller than the pin that holds the float in. And I just gave it a little rap with the hammer, and I'm going to smack it again, and this guy will come right out. Then I can change the gasket, and I can work on the accelerator pump. So I went ahead and pulled my enrichment needles out, because I didn't want to do any damage to them as I was disassembling things. And you can see they're pretty grimy, and one of them was frozen. I think this one was frozen in place, and I could not, it couldn't move freely on its own. So that was not helping anything. This spring, I don't know if you can see the color in it, but it's red. So it's got red springs. I'm going to record that. So now I know my main jet size, and I know that I've got red springs in my enrichment needles. Also, I got the floats off. Give them the shake test. I hear nothing. We're good on those. On the needle, so this is the when you hear somebody talk about a needle and seat, this is your float, and this is the needle, and the seat is inside here. So what this does is this needle drops when the float drops, and it lets fuel through, and then as the float rises, it pushes that needle in and stops the flow of fuel, so that you don't flood the carburetor out. When you see guys take a wrench and smack on the side of a carburetor on an old vehicle because it's got fuel going everywhere and then it stops, that's what's happening. This was stuck, and it's now loose, and the float can raise and it can close that seat. So when you buy one of these kits, it has everything you need. It's got a gasket, there's some other gaskets, there's, you know, some new needle and seats, because those tend to wear and leak, so I'll give you a new needle and seat. Lots of little parts, and don't worry if you have extra parts, because it comes with parts that are for numerous carburetors, and it just might not use everything that's in there. I have piles of old carburetor, well, new carburetor parts, gaskets and things in boxes like this, because I keep them all. And every once in a while I'll have something that carburetor's fine except for it needs one little part, and I'll have it in a box. I get pretty lucky that way. And the other thing is, nice thing is that these kits, they come with a big parts diagram, exploded view showing you where everything goes. It also comes with a little measuring stick so you can set your float height, which you do by bending the tang on the float. You can see right here, there's directions on exactly how to set your float level. It's pretty easy. As long as you can read and, you know, follow directions, it's not bad. You just have to pay attention, take it slow, and work your way through it. Some people may think it looks intimidating, but it's really not. Once you do a few of them, even the first one, once you get through your first carburetor rebuild, you'll realize that it is not as difficult as someone might think. Now, this is a simple one. Hollies are simple. Edelbrocks are simple. You get into some like a quadrajet. I've rebuilt some quadrajets and they turned out good. I've also rebuilt a couple that didn't turn out good because there's a lot going on in those. There's a lot of places to screw up. Some people are probably going to say, you just don't know what you're doing there, but I'm just telling you, if you don't do it all the time, they are a little more difficult than these, but still not terrible. I am prepping parts for reassembly, and I wanted to show you something. I talked about little passageways. So this is one of the Venturis, and I don't even think I can get it close enough to really, it's not going to focus. Well, maybe it will. You see all these tiny little holes, like in this pipe here? Those will be full of gunk a lot of times, like this hole here. And, you know, I'll squirt carburetor cleaner in them and blow them out, and usually they come out all right. You see that right there? Right there, it looks like a dirt spot. That's a hole. Fuel and air, or one or the other, has to go through that hole, and it can't. It's completely plugged, and in those cases, you have to, you know, figure out something different. Now, you can use a variety of things. Sometimes I'll pull a wire from a wire brush, and I'll use that, or if I have a big enough wire brush, I can just bend a wire over. You can also use a torch tip cleaner, but, it's a big but, you gotta be careful, because these things are like little files, and you don't wanna make that hole bigger. That hole is metered. It's specifically made to be a certain size, to flow a certain amount, and if you get in there and screw it up, you could cause it to not run right, and there's nothing you can do about it. So that particular hole seems to be plugged up because it had RTV in it. So I'm going to see if I can poke through and see, just like that. I don't know if you can see this. I just gave it a little poke, and I'm able to put that cleaner in there, that torch tip cleaner, and it's through. Now I'll take some carburetor cleaner and I'll spray it through there. Wash my eyeballs. I can see it drooling out the bottom, so it's clear now. Well, it's mostly clear. I sprayed that cleaner in there, and now I'm going to use this air nozzle, I can feel it. I can feel the air blowing out the bottom. And now I can see that it's clear. And I can hear it. Those little passageways are the devil. The devil's in the details. If you don't get all those clear, you're not going to come out with a good end result, period. And, you know, people get lazy and that they don't fully go through and make sure all those little passageways are clear. And they think, it'll be fine. It won't be fine. Those are what make these carburetors work properly. And without those things clear, it's never going to run right. Okay, so I'm about to start reassembly here. I noticed, so these are the primaries. These are the Venturi. I guess it's the Venturi, they call it. It's perched up here at the top and lets the fuel through. Because the person who last worked on this used RTV, there was all sorts of stuff clogged up. These carburetors, you know, the fuel is pumped into them under pressure, but it's not a pressurized system. It's drawing air through it. And in drawing air through the carburetor, it creates basically a negative pressure or vacuum. And the vacuum pulls fuel through the carburetor. And that's how you get a mixture of air and fuel. So when you plug it all up with RTV, you don't get that. You essentially clog it all up and it won't work. And that's what I had going on with this. I have a feeling it's gonna be substantially different once I get this all back together and get it running. You know, any carburetor really is the same. You know, it doesn't matter if you're working on a snowblower or a weed whacker or a go-kart. I mean, there's all different designs, but they all do the same thing. And after a while, after you do a couple of them of, you know, all different shapes and sizes, you figure out real quick that, you know, there's nothing magical about it. Just get it clean, get all the gaskets, you know, set in there where they seal up properly, and you really shouldn't have many problems. Every once in a while, you know, if you got one that's just starting to get clogged up, you can like pull a fuel line off, blow compressed air through it, and you know, basically if it's starting to get gummy but it's not yet solidified in there, you could blow it through. And I've done that with my dirt bike before, where it sat for 4 or 5 months, and then I go to start it and it doesn't want to start, or it's not running quite right. And even with that, I take it out and run the crap out of it, it's still not running right, because it's just the vacuum of the engine pulling through. There's no pressure on that fuel, you know. But then blow a little air through it, and it's good. You want to snug these down, but you got to be careful. You don't want to strip out the aluminum. You don't want it to be so tight that if you got to take it apart someday, it's, you know, impossible to get it apart. now I got to figure out which way all this stuff went. Yeah, see, that's not right. Usually, you know, if it doesn't make sense, you're probably not doing it right. There we go. Just use your brain. If you got, you know, if you're doing things of this nature, you've got a mechanical brain to work with. Just use it. See, and then you got to pay attention. You're talking to your buddy, and you're just busy putting shit together, and then you realize that you're leaving things out. I just left out the air metering portion of the secondary. It's got a weighted set of butterflies that sit in there, and that's, let's see, how does that go? See what I did? I should have paid attention when I took it apart. Well, it doesn't work that way, so it must go this way. So the weights hold it shut until you romp on it, and then the air pulls it open. Yeah, that's right. So anyway, I know I'm showing you all the view of the back of my hand here, but like I said, I'm new at this. I just hope somebody out there gets a little instructional quality out of this video. I really like helping people out with this type of stuff. I like helping people help themselves. I hate it when I start trying to tell somebody how to do something and they say, oh, well, how about I just bring it over to your house? No. How about you listen to what I'm telling you, and then you can do it. Because it's not rocket science. And then next time, you'll be proud of yourself if you were able to pull it apart and make it right without anybody's help. All right. Got those all back together. I need to put my jets back in. The best thing to do is set them somewhere where they'll stay safe, and don't do what I did and knock them on the floor and then chase them around for 30 minutes and then have to get out the magnifying glass again to see what size they are and make sure you got them in the right spot. Usually I try to clean off my bench real well for doing this kind of work, but you know, I just kind of have a lot of stuff going on right now, and I got stuff all over the place. I got my dad's old chainsaw here that one's throwing me a fit. That one, I cleaned it all up, got it running, put a new carburetor kit in it. It was running beautifully for one day. Next day, I go out, go to start it, it won't start. And it's not drawing fuel through it. I don't have very good luck with chainsaws. I don't know what it is, but the chainsaws just give me trouble every time. I think it's all those tiny little fuel lines and something about them just doesn't agree with me. I shouldn't say that. I've got a few that I was able to get going, and I tend to pick up stuff at sales and things, and then I'll get them going, and then I'll have 4 or 5, insert whatever kind of machinery it is sitting around, and I'll sell them. Because I just can't stand to see a good piece of machinery go to waste. I hate, you know, I've found four separate trimmers in the dumpster at work. And we're not talking about cheap stuff. The cheapest one I've got that came out of there is an Echo. I've got a Steel. I've got some commercial brand that's Mariama, I think. And there's another one too. I can't remember what it is. But they all worked. Two of them, all I did was put fuel in them, and they started right up. The Steel, I put fuel in it and it started right up. I just can't believe it. I'm like, who tries to start something that costs hundreds of dollars, and the first time they try it, it doesn't start, so they throw it in the dumpster. You know, it's crazy. So now I got all that sitting here, and my brother needs one because he just bought some property and he needs a good trimmer, and I'm gonna help him out. But we live in this throwaway society. It just kills me sometimes. I can't believe the things that people just toss, you know. All right, I'm dropping my little ball in there, check ball, and here's the weight that holds it down. These are my, you know, my squirters, my pump shot for my accelerator pump. Not too shabby, and we'll have it back together here in just a few minutes, and then throw it back on the car and see how it runs. Pretty sure it's going to run a whole lot better than it did. And cross my fingers that I got everything back together right, because Lord knows I'm not perfect. So, you know, we all make mistakes. Now and then I'll, like right now, see, you keep talking, screwing around, and make mistakes. That's something of making these videos I'm gonna have to get used to. It's because I'm not very good at working with my hands and chatting the entire time. So I just put this squirter on and I forgot the gasket. I saw it laying there and I thought, well, what's that for? That looks much better. It would have had fuel squirting out all over the place and drooling down through there, and then I would have been running bad again, and I would have been cussing and pulling it back off. Okay, that one's in. I got a couple little linkage pieces that go back on. Let's see, this one goes on the weight for the, or I'm sorry, the idle adjustment for the choke. And then this is my accelerator pumper deal, which I think go back in there. I don't, if I remember, no, went down at the bottom. There it is. All right. So I set my droop, I set my float height at 7/16 on both sides. I use a 7/16 drill bit underneath it to show the, you know, to get the height. And then I set my droop. My droop was way out of whack. It was like 1.5 inches. It's supposed to be 15/16. So that's all set now too. And I cleaned up this accelerator pump, whatever you want to call it, the cylinder for that. I think I want to put a little oil on this piece of rubber because I want it to go in there smooth and I don't want it to catch or tear or do anything weird. If I can get any oil to come out of this thing. There it goes. All right. So a little oil never hurt anything. It'll wash right out with the fuel that goes through it. Just easy does it, you know. I think on the Edelbrock it's the center hole. So there's different holes for your accelerator pump linkage, and that, you know, regulates the amount of pumpage you get from your accelerator pump. So you can enrichen it or you can lean it out. I think I'm using the right terms for that. It's basically increasing the volume of fuel that you're pumping on tip end, or it's decreasing it. But I'm going to put it right in the middle. That's the stock setting, and then we'll see, you know, if I have to lean it out, I will. With this big car, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't have much experience putting a double pumper on a big old station wagon like this, so we'll see. I don't know. It might, like I said earlier, it may not be the best carburetor for it. At least it'll be all set up and run well. And if I have to sell it, I can sell it to someone that can use it, you know. So I'm going to end this for a second. I'm going to finish putting all these screws in because you guys don't need to watch me do that. And I'll get the carburetor back on the car. I'll get our enrichment needles back in, get the carburetor back on the car, and we'll fire it up. All right, folks, it's all back on there. So I'm going to go ahead and crank on it. There's no fuel in the carburetor, so you'll have to crank a few times to get the bowls filled up. And I guess I'll probably set the choke. It's pretty cold here. I mean, it's, you know, 40s. Although I've got my garage warmed up a little bit. Anyway, you can give it a shot, see what you think. So that's idling with full choke, and it wouldn't do that before. It wouldn't even try. I would have to rev and get it warmed up before it would even do anything. So I'm gonna go turn the choke off and see what it does. yeah, this is incredible. It's a different car now. So I know, to those of you who do this often, it's not that big a surprise, but I love the result when you do something like this and it works out. So the car needs to be warmed up, and I need to get a vacuum gauge on it, and I can adjust that carburetor via a vacuum gauge. Or I might, I don't know. I don't have it with me right now. It's at work, so I may wind up just doing it by ear. But it's great. So here's the finished product. It feels like it's got a slight, it's not a stumble, but it's not real smooth coming off the idle, so I may have some adjusting to do. I could have to do with that accelerator pump. I don't know, I gotta get it warmed up first. Probably take it around the block and see how it does. But anyway, there you have it. That's the first video for Joe's Garage, and probably get a sweet sound of that exhaust. Where's it at? There it is. This car's got a great sound to it. I will probably have other videos of other things, you know, maybe four-wheeler, maybe one of these weed whackers, I don't know. Anything really. But in the meantime, I will talk to you guys later, and you know, if you have any feedback for me, let me know. Thanks. So just a quick follow-up. I just went for a short test drive with the car, got it warmed up, and as suspected, you know, it runs well, but it's the wrong carburetor for this car. At lower RPMs, you know, it just kind of, you get that wah, and then at 4,000 RPM and higher, it runs like, how can I explain this? It hauls ass. So it gets up and moves, and it's great. But so what I need is a vacuum secondary Edelbrock 750, I think. I think that would be my best option. I thought that's what I was buying when I bought this one. So anyway, I'll just sell this one, probably sell the other Hollies, and I don't know, maybe I'll buy a brand new one, who knows. I think she deserves it. It's a good solid old car, so I might just do that. But anyway, I just want to chime in and let you guys know how that turned out. It runs great, smooth, idle smooth, you know, everything's good. It's just the improper carburetor for, you know, if you have a, I guess I should explain why. Vacuum secondary carburetors open up the secondaries when there's enough vacuum in the engine. It's on demand. So what the engine needs is what it gets. They work best in heavy cars with tall gearing, because at lower RPMs, there's just not going to be that demand. And mechanical secondaries are great for lightweight racing applications, because they're going to pull RPMs quick. Or if you got a real high stall, because you need to get the RPMs up before it, you know, because as soon as you mash that pedal, all four barrels open up, and that's it, they're open, and it's all, you know, it's all there. So lightweight, low gearing, high stall, or stick shift vehicles, or that's what you want a mechanical secondary carburetor for. And if you got a big heavy rig like this, you want a vacuum secondary. So that's what I'm going to wind up doing with it. But this rebuild was a success. Now I can sell this carburetor as a rebuilt, ready to use carburetor. So I'll get a few extra bucks out of it for that. Hopefully, you know, cover the cost of what I spent on the kit, which was 50 bucks minus some discounts and stuff, and you know, so I wound up getting it for 40 something dollars, $42, something like that. They got cheap kits on eBay that are 15 bucks, or on Amazon. I just don't know if they're any good, and I wanted to use an Edelbrock kit because I didn't want to have any problems, you know. So anyway, that's about all I got for you today. Joe's Garage, signing out.